Get ready for the Magic Valley Prepcast on IdahoSports.com.
That is right. Welcome in another edition of the Magic Valley Prepcast on IdahoSports.com's YouTube channel, Facebook page, and Twitter account, coming at you live. You can also listen to this podcast, of course, audio only at IdahoSports.com or wherever you download and subscribe to podcasts. This is your weekly breakdown of all of the biggest athletic happenings in District 4, right there in the Magic Valley, in the great state of Idaho. My name is Brandon Baney. Let's bring in our Magic Valley expert. Mayday, Mayday, it's Scott Burton. What's up, Scotty?
Yo, Brandon, what's shaking? Hey, I'm chilling in a new spot. Normally you'll find me in the front of the fireplace or, a couple times out into the man cave where all my helmets and all that kind of stuff is. But I got to work on the internet strength out there in order to get back out there. So now I'm in like this big chair in my living room, and I've never done it from here before. And here we are. And May Day, just because, obviously yesterday was May 1st, right? Yeah, May Day. But the double entendre is it coming down the end of the school year. It is May Day, May Day, all trying to get everything wrapped up. So there you have it.
Yeah, you could have gone one of two ways with really one of three ways with the calendar. There's three holidays that are they're not holidays, but 3 days of significance right away to start May off. You got May 1st, right? May Day. You got May 4th. That's now like officially Star Wars Day. May the 4th be with you. And then May 5th, Cinco de Mayo, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a big week if you're into all that stuff too. I mean, if you're just finding reasons to get out and cause trouble and whatever it is you do, you got 3 of them right there in 5 days. So I'm still tired after May 1. So I'm just kind of recharging, put on my Yoda costume here in a couple of days and celebrate a little bit more.
See that? We do not want to. I don't want to see you in a Yoda costume. If that ever happens,
nobody does. That's why I'm not allowed in a Target parking lot anymore.
That would be our official jumping the shark moment. But as it stands, we've got a lighter show today. Last week we went super long and it was on a Saturday morning. So we figured, okay, we'll dial it back. We'll get back to a weekday show. Keep it pretty simple. We're just going to be taking a look at the state district softball and baseball brackets. The biggest mystery of this show might be, which teams are going to come out on top. But the larger mystery is that door behind you, Scott. Does that lead outside or does that lead to another room?
That is the outside door. Okay. That is the front door. So if anybody decides to come over, they're going to walk in right behind me. So if I happen to have some sort of break-in for whatever reason, guess what? It's on live, and they're not getting away.
Yeah, it's not like a 90s sitcom. There's no guest star that's going to be busting through the door to thunderous applause.
Kramer comes flying in right over my shoulder. That would be awesome.
Yeah, well, no Kramer, but lots of good baseball and softball. Seinfeld was a show about nothing. Well, we got plenty to talk about on this week's show, so let's get into it. If you are watching on the IdahoSports.com YouTube channel, Facebook page, Twitter account live, first of all, thanks for being with us. Second of all, if you could hit that like button or the subscribe button if you're on YouTube, that's going to help everybody that's watching this on replay find it a little easier amongst all the social media stuff that's going on. And thirdly, if you're watching the video, I'm going to share my screen and put the brackets up on the screen for you to view and follow as we break them down and dissect them. If you are listening audio only, it's all good. We have all the district tournament brackets on our homepage at IdahoSports.com, and you can follow along that way. Scott, I will, with the first pick in the draft, Scott, do you want to go softball or baseball here? I'll let you choose.
Ooh. You know what? Let's do some softball.
Okay, I like it. That's a good start because I actually have all 4 of the district brackets for softball. I only have 3 of the 4 officially for baseball. Still waiting on one that we'll get to here in a little bit. And let's start with the Great Basin Conference in Class 4A. Mm-hmm. This is a 6 team affair, Scott. Whoever finishes 7th, unfortunately, does not get to participate this year. That was Mountain Home. But otherwise, the opening round matchups are tonight, Thursday, May 2nd. You've got Jerome, the 3 seed, hosting Canyon Ridge, the 6 seed. And then also tonight, Burley, the 4 seed, will host Minico, the 5 seed. The winners of those respective games will advance to play either number 1 Twin Falls or number 2 Wood River. They get a first round bye. Third place came down to the old coin flip, Scotty, between Jerome and Burley. Were you the representative for Jerome at that coin flip? How did that all go down?
Yeah, we were. In fact, it was a Monday night. We were at the 4th District Honors Banquet, where all the schools in the Valley send 2-3 kids that grade point averages, extracurriculars, just kind of the best of the best. And we have this big old banquet, and I was keynote speaker at it, and whatever. But so were the ADs were there as well. And it's like Randy Wynn and I were like, well, we need to flip. And he had one of his softball players there, actually, that was one of the people being honored and recognized. And she came over and we flipped the coin and they called it wrong. So we got the number 3 seed, which means that we are hosting Canyon Ridge tonight instead of hosting Minico.
I always thought it would be fun to, because there's all these tiebreakers, right? And a lot of them come down to coin flips at times. It would be cool to have just like a day in the summer where all of the athletic directors get together and you go head to head with the other 6 schools in a parlor game type of tiebreaker. Like, hey, for Jerome and Mountain Home, we're going to be shooting darts. And whoever wins this tiebreaker gets the tiebreaker for all sports over Mountain Home. And now we're playing Burley. We're going to roll some dice. Like, how cool would that be?
Oh, that would be total fun. It would be awesome. It just takes me back to being a little kid where, I would sit at the kitchen table and I would make my own brackets, right? And then I would put my teams, like NFL teams or whomever I'm playing, and I would just sit and I'd flip coins for hours. And it would be kind of like best of 7. And okay, they advance. And I would entertain myself flipping a coin and making brackets. I mean, no wonder I turned out the way that I did. And people kind of look at me and scratch their head. It's like, what happened to you? Well, that's what happened to me. So I am totally on board with this parlor game tiebreaker stuff. But geez, every once in a while, Brandon, you ask the right question, you get into the psyche and it just leaks out. So sorry about that.
No, that's all right. It reminds me a lot of the movie Vegas Vacation. If you haven't seen it, it's the 4th and final installment of the vacation movies, the originals anyways. And where Chevy Chase, he's so down on his luck, he has to go to the lowest of the low gambling spots, and it's heads or tails and odd or even, or he's like down to his last dollar.
Oh yeah, that's kind of how it feels sometimes.
Yep.
So we won the coin flip anyway, and so now we're hosting.
Yeah. Anyways, on a lighter show, sometimes we divert off the path a little bit. Let's get back on. So yeah, here's the breakdown of this bracket, Scott. Really, to me, it is the 2 teams that get the bye. Those are the 2 favorites coming in: Twin Falls, Wood River. We've talked about Wood River a lot on the Prepcast this year with Mackenzie Nelson and Peyton Nelson, the Nelson sisters. Twin, of course, had a fantastic regular season as well. Who of this quartet here, Jerome, Burley, Minico, Canyon Ridge, who could possibly play spoiler in this tournament?
You know what? I think Jerome has the best chance of being spoiler. I wouldn't count Burley out, but it really is Twin and Wood Rivers to lose. I mean, you take a look at Twin Falls. I mean, they're powerful. I mean, you just watch these girls play. They're just built like they were going to kick your butt. You look at them, they're physically imposing. They're strong. They've got some solid hitters. I mean, Molly Hodge hitting 580, Sydney Junn hitting 437, but this team can hit for power. And that's the thing is this team offensively, they're scoring 11 runs a game, but they can score. One swing of the bat can change the game for Twin Falls, but on top of that, they've got somebody in the circle that's pretty solid too in Sidney McCurdy, who's, thrown about 75 innings this year, 104 strikeouts, 45 walks, 2.68 ERA. I mean, this is a very balanced Twin team. And so you look at that and you say, okay, they're obviously the favorites because they've got the pieces. They do. Well, Wood River, they're having a great year, and they could possibly have one of the best hitters in the state, in Mackenzie Nelson. She's swinging at a 714 average, with 7 home runs. I mean, this is somebody you have to be careful of. And the way that Wood River can really do some damage is if they can get the runners on base ahead of her and allow her to swing the bat, because, she is somebody that is a game changer. And you talked about the Nelson sisters, with Mackenzie and Peyton. I mean, those are the two that throw. This is a Nelson family affair in Wood River. And so it's they've got the pieces to do it. They're the only conference team to beat Twin, and they did it the final game of the regular season, 13-12. But then, after that, it's going to come down to pitching, really, because that's Jerome's downfall. They just don't have the pitching. They're going to have to out-hit you. And if they're not swinging it well, they're going to have some trouble. I mean, they've got Autumn and Emma Allen that can swing it, to Calais Thompson, Macy Miller. I mean, they've got people there, but they don't have the pitching. And the thing about Burley, they just need more consistency in the circle. And Cambry Beck's been kind of the one leading the way. Hallie Vaughn's been throwing, but the consistency that Burley is lacking in the circle is eventually what might cost them. So that's just kind of my take on that district tournament.
Yeah, last year it was Twin Falls and Jerome who met for the district championship, a wild 8-inning, 15-14 victory for the Bruins. Jerome then turned around and beat Burley to punch their ticket to state as well. Yeah, you mentioned it. Wood River, the only team to beat Twin this year. But then you look at the next step down, Wood River split with both Burley and Jerome this year.
Mm-hmm.
And each game was 2 runs or less either way. So really that second spot, to me, it's going to be interesting to see, who takes hold of it and grabs it. Wood River does have a little bit of a built-in advantage with that first round bye. It's one less hurdle that they've got to clear, but this is going to be a really fun and exciting tournament. Let's drop down a level, Scott, to the Class 3A SCIC, Sawtooth Central Idaho Conference. We had first round games last night. Sorry, I see a lawn and landscaping truck pulling up outside my window. I think it's for the neighbors. Anyways,
somebody was coming in behind me.
Yeah, right. Look out, Scott. Anyways, at this tournament, we had the first round of games last night. Kimberly, the top seed, they went 9-0 in conference play this year. They are 17-4 overall. Of course, they went to state last year and did exceptionally well. Ended up defeating Gooding 9-8 and then in their final game at state last year. So it was 2 District 4 teams playing on Saturday at state. And again, it's Kimberly and Gooding matching up. So Kimberly got the win last night over Filer. And then how about this? Number 3 seed Gooding takes out number 2 Buell 11-1, a 10-run victory for the Senators.
Yeah, boy, great on Gooding. But, I think Buell and Gooding are so evenly matched that it's really who is going to be able to knock off powerhouse Kimberly. I mean, this Kimberly team is loaded, and it starts with Addie Clark. I mean, she is the real deal, just a sophomore. She's leading hitter, hitting .514. She's got 6 dingers, but then you get her into the circle and she is dominating. I mean, this is where you get places in baseball and softball, is if you can have pitching. And, they've got a really great 1-2 punch. Kimberly does, with Addie Clark and Mallory Kelsey. These two are lights out. I mean, Addie's got a 1.81 ERA, Kelsey a 2.01 ERA, but their strikeout to walk ratio, both of them dominating. Addie is at 76 strikeouts to 17 walks is all. And then you got Kelsey to deal with, 95 strikeouts to 20 walks. So this 1-2 punch, plus the fact that this is a very, very high octane, powerful offense that Kimberly has. I mean, offensively, they banged out 18 home runs. So top to bottom, who's going to beat them? You know, they're that good.
They've been dominant. Those were all eloquent points, Scott. I don't know if you looked up at any point and didn't see me on the screen.
I did. I was thinking, okay, am I going to take the show over now?
I had to roll my chair over to the window and close the blinds. My dogs were barking at the lawn people outside. So, anyways, this is why we don't record until Saturday. No,
well, you know what? This is what live shows do. I mean, you don't get this kind of entertainment if we had to record it.
That's right. So that sets up the undefeated semifinal Friday night, Gooding at Kimberly. Also a loser out game Friday night. Buell will host Filer. Hey, who's ready for Declo and Wendell? Round 10,000. Here we go. It's
right.
2A District 4, two-team affair. Declo won the regular season title, so they get to host games 1 and 2 of the best of 3 series. Mm-hmm. That'll be Monday, May 6th, and then Wednesday, May 8th.
Yeah, I mean, this is a matchup that could go either way. I mean, they've been pretty balanced so far this year. I mean, they've played 3 times. Wendell's beaten them, Declo's beaten them twice, but I tell you, this could go either way. And you look at Declo, they've got some pretty good players, and they've got a pretty decent pitcher. I mean, Jacoby Nebeker leads the way, hitting over 600, for this team. And then Rachel Nebeker, the go-to pitcher, if she can stay under control with her control in the circle and not fall behind and walk people. And, that's going to be what is going to be Declo's downfall, I think, is that they just start giving those free passes to Wendell, because that's been a problem, But Wendell, on the other hand, they've got another, a great hitter, Ainsley Clark, 576, 4 home runs. But, Brianna Comstock, she's very good in the circle and very controlled pitcher, high strikeout to walk ratio. So I don't know. This could go either way. I mean, it really is. It's going to be a good series.
And the interesting thing about this matchup, Scott, is that they played 3 times in conference play. They were all kind of early in the season, like late March and then early April. So it's been, about a month since these teams actually faced each other on the diamond. Wendell won the first game of the year, 11-3, and then Declo took a doubleheader in Wendell, 18-6 and 15-11. But two of the 3 games pretty close and competitive. And so, this is going to be, I think, I lean Declo here, but both teams have been in the coaches poll this year, ranked in the top 5 of 2A softball. Declo is in our last coaches poll of the year that just dropped earlier today. This is going to be an interesting battle. Wendell has closed the gap with Declo a little bit here. So,
the thing is, when you talk about spring sports, and you brought up a good point, these guys played early on. And I mean, think about the weather that we've had. And do you actually get a good gauge of how a team is growing and coming together, early on when you're playing in 35-mile-an-hour winds? I mean, it's different. It is the one thing that's really interesting about baseball and softball is that it never is what it seems, because all these teams were playing in crap weather for so long, and still are, really. But once things kind of equal out weather-wise, we start getting a whole different team than we saw. And so it's really tough to say, well, they lost back in beginning of April and whatever. It's like, they're a different team. And the weather's got a lot to do with it, which is bizarre to even have that conversation, but it's so true.
Yep, it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out for sure. We'll wrap up with 1A. Scott, this is District 3 technically, and you might be thinking, hey, this is a District 4 show. Well, we got Glens Ferry, and that's it for 1A softball in District 4. So they shimmy over to District 3 and compete there. This is a tournament that will be held next week at the Gals Field Complex over in Caldwell. It's one of the nicest softball facilities in the state. There's 4 fields. They call them the Gals Quads. And so you're able to play a tournament in a pretty short amount of time, Scott. I mean, it's a 2-day tournament, basically. There's going to be like a play-in game over here Thursday, and then some more single elimination games. And then basically you get into the semifinals and the championship Friday. It's a 2-day tournament. You'll notice here there is a double bye for the top 2 teams in the regular season standings. Glens Ferry is 11-0 in conference play. Everybody is supposed to play 12 games. I don't know if that's actually going to happen or not. So, I mean, you can pretty much lock in Glens Ferry here. Nobody else is within. I mean, the next closest team is Garden Valley, and they've got 3 losses already. So essentially what we're saying, Scott, is not only is Glens Ferry the favorite in this tournament, but with the double bye, they have pretty much locked up a spot at state already. Yeah,
they have. And it's a really weird bracket, but, you know, Glens Ferry is by far the best team in this conference. I mean, this conference, I mean, really, it's not very strong this year. That's not taking anything away from Glens Ferry because they're really good. But this is Glens Ferry and everybody else.
Yep. And so we'll just keep it here while we transition to baseball. We'll work our way up from 1A to 4A in baseball. I have not gotten an official 1A district tournament bracket yet for baseball. I've emailed all the athletic directors in District 3. I'm not sure who's in charge, Scott, right? Every tournament has a tournament director, right? It's an AD from a different school, depending on the sport. And so I kind of sent a blanket email out. Haven't heard anything back yet, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be the exact same format as softball, where your top 2 seeds get the double bye and essentially are locked into a top 4 finish. The one caveat with baseball is, unlike softball, or excuse me, the one caveat with softball is only the top 3 are guaranteed to go. If for some reason Glens Ferry were to fall into this game here in softball and take 4th place, it would have to be, they'd have to get an at-large bid via Max Preps, but they're so dominant, I think they're going to get it no matter what. But in baseball, it is a tried and true, the top 4 teams get to go from districts. And so what does that mean? Well, pretend this is the baseball bracket. Instead of Glens Ferry being number 1, it's actually Lighthouse Christian. Lighthouse Christian didn't have softball this year, but they do have baseball, Scott, and they are at the top of the charts with a 13-1 record in league play. They went 15-5 overall. They're done with conference action. And so Idaho City has 1 more game left. They're 11-2, which means they can't catch Lighthouse. And so Lighthouse is locked in as the number 1 seed. And the Lions will get to go to state for the first time in school history in baseball, Scott. What an accomplishment.
Yeah, very cool, because, I mean, when they were getting started, they were just taking the last seed and trying to get kind of their feet wet. And boy, have they come a long way and are doing really well. And they've got a really good team. There's a lot of they've got a bevy of pitchers. They can hit. They've been dominant in their conference. I'm excited for them to go and get that experience, of a state tournament early on. And, they're coming in a little bit hot too. I mean, they haven't lost, since mid-April.
Pretty impressive. This league in general, Scott, has been kind of a hot mess. There's a clear top 3: Lighthouse, Glens Ferry, Idaho City. Vision Charter is a pretty solid 4. And then the bottom half of the league, there have been forfeits up and down. Yeah. There's been a lot of forfeits. So, this tournament to me looks pretty clear cut. The key is going to be for the other team from our neck of the woods, Glens Ferry. Right now, they're in 3rd behind Idaho City. Idaho City is 11-2. Glens Ferry is 10-3. Each team has lost to Lighthouse twice. And then in the first matchup this year between Idaho City and Glens Ferry, Idaho City won by a run. They came to Glens Ferry and won 11-10. And Scott, I love when the schedule works out, because the regular season finale for these teams is on Friday, in Idaho City. If the Wildcats win that, they're locked in as the number 2 seed. They get to go to state again stress-free. And Glens Ferry would then drop into this number 3 seed where all of a sudden you're in a single elimination game before you can feel comfortable about your spot. If Glens Ferry can win and earn the split, all they have to do is win by more than a run, and they would have the run differential tiebreaker since they only lost by a run the first time. So there's still a path forward for Glens Ferry.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And again, this bracket is so bizarre, and it's kind of fun at the same time. But just like you said, I mean, it would play out that way that back up to Idaho City, these two are going to tangle for some really important baseball. I mean, this is huge. That's a huge game. And I mean, just the way that this works out, Lighthouse, should go without a problem. But boy, you'd like to see Glens Ferry get there too. But so this is a big game.
Yep, for sure. That'll be on Friday. We'll go ahead and change this back to Glens Ferry since it's softball, and we'll close out of it. Just for reference, here was what last year's tournament looked like, Scott. Glens Ferry came in as the number 2 seed, got the double bye, had the chance to then pretty much clinch a spot to state. And then you look over here and look at, you talked about it a year ago. Lighthouse basically said, hey, we'll just go ahead and take the last seed, the number 9 seed. They not only got a win here in the first round play-in game, they almost got a win in the second play-in game to then advance. I mean, Lighthouse came that close to being a Cinderella a year ago, and now they come in as the top dog. What a difference a year makes.
Oh, absolutely. The excitement over there for baseball is huge. So yeah, great. I can't say enough about what they're doing over there at Lighthouse with their brand new baseball program.
Yep. Fun to watch. A lot of good athletes. All right, let's get back to this year's bracket proceedings. Here we go. Wendell and Declo flip-flopped from softball, where Wendell won the regular season title. They swept Declo twice. Wendell is 13-5-1 overall as well. So Wendell's going to host game 1 Saturday, game 2 Tuesday in this best of 3 series. And Wendell has put together a really nice season. To me, they're kind of the clear-cut favorite coming in.
Yeah, they are. I mean, they hit the ball better. They've got stronger pitching. Not taking anything away from Declo. They just, as a team, they're not even hitting 300. I mean, they've got a couple of guys that are over 400, but they're just not a very strong offensive-minded team. Pitching-wise, it's, kind of by committee with Garrard and Darrington and Bottenlaum. It's just who's throwing well at that time. They just don't have that dominant ace on the mound. And then Wendell, on the other hand, they're scoring 8 runs a game and hitting 347 as a team. I mean, this is a pretty solid Wendell group. Alex Heride hitting 468 and Julian Ponce hitting 433. But then you go look at the pitching. And if you're going to get somewhere at a state tournament, you've got to have depth at pitching. One guy ain't going to get it done. Wendell's got a couple of dudes that can throw. And Cooper Jones is kind of the one leading the way. He's thrown the most innings for Wendell at a 1.39 ERA. So, he's very much controlled. Strikeout to walk ratio is phenomenal. And when you're done with him, then you got to deal with Julian Ponce and then Lucas McRoberts. They've got a solid 3 starting pitching. Wendell does, and that bodes well for state tournaments.
And speaking of state tournaments, Scott, you're going to be part of our coverage at the 2A state tournament this year on IdahoSports.com. There are a lot of data points here for Wendell in terms of they played a lot of teams that they're probably going to see at state. Just looking at the resume, the top team from the East is Chalice Mackey, the co-op. They played them twice. They beat them 3-0, and then they tied them at the Glens Ferry Woodbat tournament 5-5. Firth is probably going to get the other bid from East Idaho, and we know what kind of a program they've had over the years. They beat Firth this year 8-5, and then they lost 12-2, but they did get the win. Then you head west, right, over to District 3. Nampa Christian, baseball dynasty, right? They've won like 14 of the last 15 2A baseball titles. So you start looking at them, and they played them very tough and only lost 3-0. They played Coal Valley Christian, the second best team from District 3, only lost by 3, 9-6. And perhaps the biggest feather in their cap is they played Malad. They are the overwhelming favorite from District 5. They are the defending 2A state champions. Scott, very good team again this year. And Wendell beat Malad 4-3. So they have played, with the exception of like Orofino from the north, they've played just about everybody I think they're going to see at state.
Well, you know what? And there's not going to be many teams at any level that are going to be able to say that. And that is going to really benefit Wendell, because it's not going to be, they're not going to be strangers to anything at all. It's like, we played these guys. I remember this guy likes to lead with a curveball. You know, I mean, this is what he does. They're not going to be any surprises for Wendell if they can get to that state tournament.
Yep, it's going to be really interesting to see, how the Trojans maneuver through districts and then eventually on to state, if they can get past Declo first, of course.
Yeah, of course. I mean, Declo's not going to go away without a fight, of course, but on paper, Wendell has got all the pieces. So we'll see what happens.
Yep. All right, let's go to the 3A SCIC. Scott, opening round was last night. Number 1 seed is Kimberly, just like in softball. And the question is, can anybody beat these Bulldogs? I'll tell you what, Buell as the 4 seed, they hung around for quite a while last night. Kimberly had to scratch out a 5-3 victory. Then in the other first round game, it was Gooding as the 2 seed over number 3 Filer, 4-0 in a shutout. So Friday, undefeated semifinal, Gooding at Kimberly. Also, loser out game Friday, Buell at Filer. Kimberly is part of this conglomerate of teams in 3A baseball this year. There's basically a big 5. It's Kimberly, Sugar Salem, Marsh Valley, Fruitland, and Homedale that have all kind of played each other throughout the season, recognizing that, hey, we're all going to be really good and probably be at state. And they have just traded blows with everybody this year. The bigger question is, I think, who takes second place and has a chance to get in via a play-in game down here?
And that is the question too, because I mean, just like we got done talking about Kimberly softball, Kimberly baseball is really in the same position. You know, they on paper, they've got the best pitching staff in the conference, and again, that's really what it comes down to for Kimberly. I mean, they're Nelson and Stringham and Cummins. I mean, those are a solid 1, 2, 3 for Kimberly, and you can't get past that, and then you look at them offensively, they're scoring almost 10 runs a game, which is, way above everybody else. So, I mean, it's Kimberly right now to lose. And you're right. The question is, who is going to be that second team coming through? Well, it's going to be Gooding and Kimberly here coming up pretty quick. And Kimberly has owned Gooding this year, 3-0. Beat them 18-4, 4-1, and 8-3. Now they're going to tangle again for the 4th time. So you got to assume that maybe Kimberly's going to win that one. And Buell, Filer, you got to think. Oh boy,
I know it's.
I don't know. I mean, because you're looking at the way this whole thing shakes out, it's. Oh my gosh, it's going to come down to pitching, and I don't think Buell's got it. I don't think they've got the depth there. I mean, they've got the sophomore, Higley, but after that, who do you have? And that's not enough. And I think the depth of Filer is going to get him past Buell. Then it's going to come down to Filer and Gooding again. And you look at, Gooding's got a pretty good trio of pitchers, or at least competent pitchers. Patterson leads the way there. Gonzalez and Church kick in for Gooding as well. I mean, they're the ones that throw the most. Filer, I think their lack of an ace or a true number 1 might be what trips them up, because I mean, they kind of do a lot by committee. Smith and Phillips and Lewis and Paxton, they do all the throwing for Filer, but there's just not that true ace, that I've seen anyway. So all of that little rant, I see Gooding advancing. I think it's 1-2. I think it goes chalk.
And that would be an exciting story because it's been a minute since Gooding was a factor in baseball. So that would be really exciting for the kids over there in Gooding. It's interesting to me. Kimberly went 8-1 in league play this year. Their only loss was to Buell.
Yeah.
Buell only had one conference win this year. It was against Kimberly. And then look at last night. I mean, it's just maybe a tough matchup for Kimberly for whatever reason. Buell has had a tough time with Filer and Gooding. So I really, we'll see if Buell can light a spark, but I'm with you. I think it's Kimberly. I think it's Gooding. The one thing I'll say is that Gooding and Filer, everybody plays each other 3 times already in the regular season. I like the 3-game series because then it's a clear-cut tie-breaking system, right? There's no coin flip like there is in the Great Basin. But so they already played 3 times, plus they played a 4th time at the Glens Ferry Woodbat tournament. Basically, I think one of Gooding's opponents left early, and so they kind of just called up Filer and said, hey, you want to come play us? And they did. And then they've already played a 5th time right here in this district opener. So if they both get here, Scott, that would be game 6 in a long season. I guess the only other thing we could hope for is, well, it wouldn't happen. I was going to say game 7 at State, but that'd be impossible. But still, 6 times in one season. That's a lot.
That is a lot. And when you start playing that many times, it does tend to shrink the difference because you're so familiar with somebody that, that familiarity can sometimes benefit the lesser talented team in a way, just because they've seen it all. And I don't know. I mean, that's a lot to play an opponent, a district opponent, but I still see Gooding as the team that's better just because they're deeper, they're better on the mound, and I see it going 1-2.
Yep, that's the way I like it. And then let's wrap up with the Great Basin Conference over here in District 4, where Jerome was the beneficiary of the tiebreaker in softball. Baseball team got squeezed out. There was Scott, a 3-way tie for that basically 5, 6, and 7 positions, or it came down to essentially Burley took 5th at 5 and 7, and then Wood River and Jerome each went 4 and 8. And was this another coin flip, or how did this get sorted out?
It came down to like common opponents and those kind of things. And what kind of did Jerome in is they had late in the season, like second to last game or whatever, they had Wood River down in the 7th inning, and we're trying to close it out. Wood River scores 4 runs in the 7th and wins the ball game. And that essentially knocked Jerome out and got Wood River in. And so that's kind of how that all shook out. But, this is, I really like this conference tournament. And it's not because it's Twin Falls. Twin Falls is deep. Twin Falls is Twin Falls. They do what they do. A 10-2 conference record. They've got a lot of offense. Cooper Thompson and Malky and the sophomore Stadelmeyer and Rex. I mean, those guys can all swing it, but it's really never about the offense of Twin Falls. It's always been about the pitching. And Twin has got it again. They've got 5 guys that they can really throw out there. And, it's, and the thing about it is those 5 guys, there's not like one that dominates all the innings, because a lot of times you get down towards the end of the season, a guy that's thrown a ton of innings and you got nobody else that's got that kind of experience. Well, you look up and down Twin Falls' pitching roster, the sophomore Maddox Stadelmeyer, 6-0 on the year, just a sophomore, a 2.59 ERA, but he's only thrown 27 innings. And then you've got, Wesley Vinson, he's thrown 26 innings. Ketterling, 23. I mean, it goes right down the list, and they got 5 guys. Bowman and Carter, they kind of rounded out. And that's why Twin's probably going to win this conference, because of their pitching. The interesting thing is it going to be Minico, or is there going to be a spoiler? And I think, I don't know.
I'll tell you who I like.
Yeah.
So Twin Falls is the 1, Minico is the 2. They both get first round buys. You've got
Right.
Canyon Ridge the 3 hosting Wood River the 6 tonight, Thursday, May 2nd, and then Mountain Home the 4 hosting Burley the 5. A team I'm keeping an eye on is Canyon Ridge, that number 3 seed. This has been a year where, just look at the league standings, Scott. It was a mess. Twin was 10-2, and then you had Minico 7-5. Mountain Home and Canyon Ridge both go 6-6. Burley 5-7. Wood River and Jerome 4-8, and Jerome's out because somebody had to take 7th. So what I looked at then was the top dog, Twin Falls, and how did everybody do against the Bruins? The Bruins caught 2 league losses this year. Neither one of them were to Minico, the 2 seed. They swept Minico. They lost to Burley and they lost to Canyon Ridge. And when they played Canyon Ridge the second time, they only won 4-2. So just kind of using that as the eye test. I think Canyon Ridge could be that second team.
Yeah, they could. I mean, you look at the pitching of Canyon Ridge, and they're led by Connor Capps, who's dominated the innings for Canyon Ridge and has done really well. I mean, only a 3.3 ERA, good strikeout to walk ratio, and then Christian Waitley is the next guy in line who's doing really well. But after that, there's nothing there, and that can be worrisome if they kind of get after their starting pitching early. Yeah, and we already talked about Twins pitching. Minico, Minico's got 4 guys that they can throw regularly. Maybe in Salazar, Murphy, and Trinkle comes in and does a good job. They can battle. Wood River's problem is they don't have that ace, and so it makes it tough for Wood River to kind of make some noise there. And plus, Wood River is, their team batting, they don't hit the ball all that well, so I don't see them unless something weird happens. Mountain Home, man, Mountain Home has the best pitcher in the conference and one of the best in the entire state. But he's one guy. And after that, you might as well walk off a cliff because there's nothing else there. And that's Trey Morse, who, he's pitched 32 innings and has given up 5 hits all year. He's struck out 72 batters and walked 9. His ERA is 0.0. Problem is, that's all they got. And that could spoil something depending on who he throws against. That could knock a good team down into the losers bracket. So what does Mountain Home do against Burley, in that opening round? Are they going to throw Morse or what? They probably will. And if Morse can dominate, then Burley goes down. And I think Burley has got some people there that can make some noise. I mean, Burley's not a bad team. They've got 3 guys that can throw, Kyler Robinson and Ike Redder and Larson. I mean, these guys can all get it done, but they're going to face Mountain Home. They're going to face Morse right out of the gate, which could possibly put them in the losers bracket right away. And so as you look at this bracket, there's a story within the story, because Mountain Home doesn't have the depth to do anything, but what they do have is one of the best pitchers in the state, so whoever they play, they're going to send that team to the losers bracket more likely than not.
And here's where I love this, because this is just full of intrigue. Burley was going to be the other team I kind of singled out because they split with Twin in the regular season. And the second time Twin beat Burley, it took 11 innings to finish the job. So, Burley's not chopped liver here. And Twin played Mountain Home earlier this year and only won 3-2. It was a tight game. So the pitcher for Mountain Home in that 3-2 game, where Mountain Home nearly won, was a senior, Hunter Dallas. Now you look at his stats for the season.
Yeah.
He's got an ERA at 4.41. Not a big strikeout guy necessarily. 33 strikeouts in 27 innings, so just over a K per inning, essentially. And so he did pretty well against the Bruins the first time around. So if they throw Morse here and they throw Dallas here, who knows?
Well, you know what? You're right.
It could happen, right?
You're right. And I kind of overlooked that. And I'm looking at like all of the notes I took and my observations, and you're absolutely right. And I kind of walked back what I said. You got Trey Morse, and it's not like you're walking off a cliff. I mean, in comparison to where he is, right, to number 2, I think Mountain Home, I sound like I'm going to just walk back everything I said. I think Mountain Home has a really good chance of being spoiler. And you brought it up, and they've got a good solid pitcher in Dallas, and then Peterson can throw. So I take back what I said about nothing behind Morse. I misspoke. They do have 3 guys that can throw. And the other thing about Mountain Home is, they can score some runs too. I mean, they can swing it. They're hitting 325 as a team. They're scoring nearly 7 runs a game, which is second in the conference behind Twin Falls. So let's erase the first part of the conversation I said about Mountain Home, and I want to bring them back in as my spoiler. They are the team I think that could get it done. But it's really Twin Falls, and then that battle for second is how I see it.
Yeah, I like it. Here's what I would do if I was Mountain Home. The second time they played Twin, the majority of the innings went to Tyler Peterson. I don't know if he started or not. Morse pitched an inning, basically. So Twin Falls has seen Morse for 1 inning this year.
Yeah.
Whereas Burley, in the 2 games Mountain Home played, it was Peterson and Morse. So Burley hasn't seen Dallas this year. I'd throw Dallas against Burley, trust that we're going to get the dub there, then throw Morse against these guys who haven't seen him outside of 1 inning this year.
Right.
It's a bit of a dice roll, but that's what makes postseason baseball so interesting. Do you save that top bullet? Sometimes you don't get to use it in a spot you wanted to. Oh, it's the gamble that I love discussing. There's no way to do it, right?
Oh, you're kind of danged if you do and danged if you don't. You got to win to get to day number 2, and if you don't, then it doesn't matter. But that's why the depth at pitching becomes so important, because if it were just Morse and not Dallas or Peterson to help out, then yeah, you throw Morse and knock somebody in a loser's bracket and then see what happens. But they've got some strategy here, and you're right. Dallas might be the guy to get him out of that first round. And next thing you know, you're throwing your ace, who has not been touched all year by anyone, against the number 1 team and a chance to play for a district title. I mean, that's why I think Mountain Home could be the spoiler.
We will see. It is going to be now. Watch Burley win this game tonight. That's after we spent all that time.
Right. Yeah, we're gonna have to go back and delete all of this, and we'll re-record it and say, no, that never happened.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. We went a little long here discussing the nuances of this bracket and the strategy, but I love it. I mean, that's what makes postseason. I love postseason softball, right? But to me, you pitch the same pitcher a lot. So there's not as much strategy in terms of pitching. Whereas in baseball, you got to line it up and you got to find 3 guys at least, and sometimes even 4 when you get to state. And so it's always just interesting to
it is. And then you're managing pitch counts and all of that stuff, because you gotta think ahead. I can only throw him here because I'm going to need him for an inning or 2 here, but I can't, his pitch count, I got to keep it down. And then it becomes the game within the game, because if you're a pitcher, you got to get ahead in the count. You got to start throwing strikes. You can't fall behind in counts, because all of a sudden now you're battling. And so you may have a guy that is a low ERA, but he throws a lot of pitches because he gets deep into counts. You know what I'm saying? And so that's why baseball is baseball. And that's why you either love baseball or you don't get it, because there's so many little nuances to it, and a true fan gets it. And that's one of the reasons I love the game and grew up playing it.
Yep. It's going to be really fun to see how this all shakes out, Scott. Next week's edition of the Magic Valley Prepcast is probably going to be bracket heavy again, but maybe we'll actually have some teams that have clinched spots to state, and that'll be filled out a little more fleshed out next week. But
yeah, it will. A lot of things. We'll see if we're even anywhere in the ballpark with some of the stuff we were throwing out today, and how much I walked back, how much I like Mountain Home now.
I love it. I feel like you're the speech guy and I'm the debate guy. I convinced you to come over to my side.
You did, and the thing is, I studied this and I looked at it, and I'm staring at it right now. It's like Mountain Home spoiler, and for some reason I just looked right over the top of it and got caught up in something else. I'm like, wait a minute, that's not what I wanted to say. So here we are.
It's going to be very intriguing. This is going to be that Great Basin tournament, especially, is going to be wild. Buckle up. So, all right. Well, thanks for tuning into the Magic Valley Prepcast, everyone. Again, if you're watching live, if you can hit that like button or subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, that'll help everybody else find it a little easier on replay. But thanks for tuning in. Enjoy the competitions this weekend, everybody. Travel safe if you're going somewhere. And we will see you back here next week for another edition of the Magic Valley Prepcast. For Scott Burton, I'm Brandon Baney. Thanks for tuning in, everyone, on IdahoSports.com.